Hey everybody, welcome back to The Collective. We have another fantastic show for you planned out today. Very excited to have both Chris and Travis coming back once again. Always glad to have you boys here. We are going to be talking about the types of coaching. Now, while I'm describing that, y'all should be doing your job too. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, do all that good stuff so you get your emails every day whenever we go live, which is, of course, every day. Now, if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything at all, by all means, put them up in the comment section, just like this one right here. Good afternoon, everyone from Winterstorm. Good to see you again. You're a little bit late. Oh, yeah, I know. I forgot.
I do have
Travis.
a thought or two on this subject.
Yeah, a couple.
I don't know.
One or
yeah.
two.
Somehow Chris has doubled himself in awesomeness.
Exactly.
I wasn't
that
going
was
to
my
complain.
bad.
Did Travis slip in at the last second or just a full my bad?
No, that was totally my bad.
Okay. Well, we win.
We all win. Anytime we have more awesomeness on the show, we all
Agreed.
win. Now, we are, like I said, we're going to get into coaching disciplines. The thing that I've been trying to figure out how to describe this or how to define it, but I have some general types of coaches. I'm going to list them off, and then we can kind of dive into how they align or what your guys' thoughts on it. So I have life coaching, spiritual coaching, mental health coaching, relationship coaching, personal development coaching, health and wellness coaching, health and wellness coaching, wealth coaching, career coaching, work and business coaching, and then skills coaching. And there's all kinds of different definitions. And as I was searching the internet, I found ones that were like the 5 types of coaching or the 15 types of coaching or the 32 types. And I'm like, I don't even know how many disciplines there are in total. So we're going to dive into this. But right off the bat, let's go around the table and figure out what your guys' first thoughts on the different types of coaching disciplines. So I'm going to start with you, Chris, and
Sure.
we'll work our way up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when you're seeking out a desired end state, it's important to find the right kind of coach. And so if I want to train for the Olympics, probably not going to seek out like a wealth coach. Maybe not yet. So it just kind of makes sense. Like there's all kinds of different avenues to pursue in life, and so if you want to be excellent at something, seeking out the right kind of guidance, the right kind of mentorship is pretty vital. So I never done any kind of research into how many different types of coaches there were, but I mean that totally makes sense. All those different types. Now, what do I do? I'm still not quite sure. I guess you could probably lump me into life coach. I typically help people figure out what kind of person they want to be down the road, how to set long-term goals, and then how to backwards plan from there to create daily action steps to make that happen. So whatever you want to call that.
I think that would be in line of a life coach. I
Yeah,
could fall in a lot of things, though, I think.
I think there's many things there, but I just don't want to continue on with the podcast until we all take a moment to recognize that frickin' Chris just dropped a killer reference to the wealth coach. I mean, am I the only one that got that from the Olympics? Then maybe you'll need a wealth coach. I mean, I thought that was funny as hell. I don't know. I'm not just going to let that one slide without making a nod to it. So,
Well, I appreciate you picking up on it.
The funny thing is, you're not the only one. Winterstorm jumped in here. He said, I'll make you 10% more awesome in 2 weeks for 19 days.
Right.
Travis, what are your thoughts on disciplines?
I think I'm not sure if we get like activities or disciplines or coaching styles or all those things kind of slur together at some level. Obviously for every type of activity that exists, there's more than likely somebody teaching somebody else how to do it or how to do it better. And that would probably qualify as coaching. So if you're involved in helping people achieve their end game, whatever their end state, then you're a coach, however you're doing that. I mean, we also have like online coaching, one-on-one coaching, group coaching. There's so many different styles within the coaching realm, and then all trying to find that end state. I also think that there's some level of, the coach's intent and what he wants to do. I found myself when I was doing some CrossFit coaching, a lot of the things that we applied in the gym in a group setting kind of carried out of the gym, when it came to as people saw physical progression and achievement, and they gained confidence, and then that stepped outside of the gym, and the next thing you know, their whole, the whole kind of life is changing because of, something that they achieved in the gym that they didn't think they could, and then that transferred to outside of the gym and into life. So you might be teaching somebody how to deadlift, but you don't really realize that you're helping this person achieve at life. So there's kind of like second and third order effects of coaching that you don't even realize as a coach.
Yeah, 100%. Sean, first thoughts?
Yeah, I like that. The second and third order. I love that stuff. To me, that's the most fascinating part. That's the most rewarding part for me as a coach. The tertiary stuff, the right in front of my nose as a coach stuff. That's easy peasy. I can do that in my sleep. But the real payback, I think, is the tertiary stuff for me as a coach. So, funnily enough, I hadn't given this much thought until Chance started rattling off all of the different coaching disciplines. I suppose there's a lot of ways to coach people out there. There's a lot of different silos that can represent coaching styles. And I'm a bit like Chris. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing as a coach currently. Whatever I am as a coach right now, I'm still not sure what it is because I'm not being paid. No one's paying me. I'm not a in a little box clearly defined coach. I'm still just feeling this whole thing out as a charitable effort. And so coincidentally, and it is coincidentally, I put up a post this morning on my IG just before I came into this live chat. And it's from a photo nearly 20 years ago when I used to own a coffee shop. I was part of a coffee chain called Second Cup. There's about 400 cafes across the country. I took a really underperforming cafe and almost tripled it in the 2 years that I owned and operated it. And there's a number of reasons for that are actually coaching related, but maybe we'll cover that in another podcast sometime in the future. For now, I'd just like to establish, as I did in my post before I came over here, that when I bought that coffee shop, I didn't think I was going to be coaching. I'd just come out of a previous coaching career. I was looking for a break. I just wanted to figure out coffee. And so I bought a coffee shop. And so as I was figuring out coffee and figuring out myself in a coffee shop, what I came to realize was it was way less about the coffee after about the first year. People would show up to talk to me, and they would buy something just to talk. And so I had this relationship starting to form after the first year where people were coming into the cafe not for the coffee, but to see me. And they'd pull me off to the side. Hey, do you got a minute? Hey, do you got 30 seconds? Hey, do you got a couple of minutes? Hey, I got a question for you. Whatever it was. And I'd be engaging with them. And because I was freely giving my time, even though they were paying me by buying a coffee, I suppose, they realized that I actually cared because I was actually interested. And it wasn't that I was interested in trying to solve all of their life problems. I wasn't. I was interested in them as a person. They started off as a customer, and then they became a friend, and then they valued my opinion, and then they'd show up on the regular. And that's how my customer base started building, is they initially showed up for a coffee, but they stuck around for the conversation. Then they weren't showing up for the coffee. They were showing up for the conversation, and the coffee was the side effect. And so that's what I would like to establish, generally speaking, is that as coaches, we may think we know what we're doing, and we may think what we're doing is a thing. But more often than not, I've found over the years that it takes me a little while to realize what we're actually here for, and it takes them a little while to realize how helpful this can be, and then it takes both of us a little while to figure out which trajectory is required. Coaching is not a 1 second effort, I suppose is the point I'm going to make.
I like that. Now, I got a couple comments. Salty Jinx was saying I'd take Winterstorm up on that one. So there you go, Winterstorm. You got your first client right there. Salty Jinx, he'll help you out. He also jumps that Sean was a caffeine coach with free life advice. So good to go. Cage says that's a great name for a coffee shop. Side effects. There you go. I like it. Now, the first question I want to ask you guys is that you guys have been coaching for a while, and the original concept of a coach, at least for me, was sports involved, right? You think of a coach who is going to be running a team. He's going to be one teaching everybody what needs to be happening, and he's going to be doing all of the large order effects of like how to run a football team and how to set up the offense and all these things, right? But in recent years, I'd say probably 5 years or so, coaching has like life coaching and wealth coaching and all these other different disciplines have started to branch off of the original kind of sports coach. What have you guys seen in terms of deviation from that original coaching style? Or do you think that these things have always been around, they just haven't had a title? If you get what I'm going at. Travis, what do you think?
I think the explosion of social media and the internet being available to coaches to reach a broader audience has just made it seem to some that it's like, wow, this is really a lucrative endeavor. I'm going to get into coaching. I'm going to be a life coach, and like I'm going to make all this money, and I'm going to open a gym, and I'm going to coach. And then sadly, most of those don't really last. But I think, back in the day, probably to be a coach would, you'd probably garner your clientele, whatever they're trying to do, through like word of mouth. People would know about you as a weightlifting coach, as a jiu-jitsu, coach, a dojo, you own a dojo or something like that. People would hear about it, and you would get your following that way. And nowadays, you can pay for advertising on the internet, and you can just reach people overnight that you never would have gotten to reach before. So I think that's kind of like the reason that coaching has just exploded so much is because of that medium and having that available. Probably some people who are great coaches who might not have been coaches if otherwise, because of the explosion, have been exposed to it and then have found it, which is rad. There's probably the opposite of that, where some people are in it for the money, And I think we've talked about before, that a coach is someone who is invested in other people's progression and achievement of their goals, And if the coach's goal is to get paid, then probably he's not the right guy, or gal.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, what are you thinking?
I think we as humans, we developed to live in like villages or tribes or communities that were pretty tight knit, and so learning skills from the elders, so to speak, whether that's apprenticeship from your dad if he was a blacksmith or a carpenter or something like that, that was pretty typical. And learning from people that have gone before you was kind of the norm. And then in my opinion, as our society has evolved, and despite how social media can connect us all, I think we've kind of island ourselves off quite a bit. And so there's this maybe lack of passing on of knowledge that used to be pretty commonplace. And so maybe that resurgence is growing more comfortable with kind of getting back to that point where I don't know everything, but somebody out there does, or knows more than I do. Where can I find them? Or what can I glean from somebody else's journey that they've already kind of ventured on? And I think, in my opinion, that's kind of where some of that has come from. We as humans are supposed to live in community and supposed to learn from people that have gone before us. And kind of this resurgence of seeking out coaches. I think coach is really just another word for mentor, or engaging in some kind of apprenticeship relationship. And so, I don't know, to me, it just kind of makes sense. And it is actually more normal than maybe we think it is.
Interesting. Shaun, what are you thinking?
Well, I did have a different direction I was going to take, and then freaking Chris Lee brought up the idea of apprentice. And what popped into my head immediately, don't even ask me why, Padawan. And so if you consider that as an example, and maybe this is part of the problem in modern society right now, is the poor understanding of what a coach can be versus what a coach sometimes is. And by is, I mean like that 21-year-old who dropped out of French philosopher from 1770 to 1775, first year of university, figured it wasn't for him, so he was going to go engage in his life wisdom as a life coach for all of his life clients. And so, as I see it, that person is underserving his clientele, whereas when you think of the word apprentice, or more correctly, Padawan, that's an esteemed position. That is something that if someone said, "You're going to be apprenticed by who?" Dude, you're the luckiest man on the planet. And so there was a time maybe when mentors, if you got the right mentor, it would change your life and you knew it. But nowadays I feel that the coaching industry, for lack of a better term, has been watered down to the degree where it's so noisy out there that no one seeks to be a Padawan and no one seeks to be Obi-Wan Kenobi to the apprentice. And I think there's a lot of Obi-Wan Kenobis. I mean, Travis and Chris could step into those positions as Obi-Wan Kenobi to some degree with this analogy. And their Padawan would be the luckiest person on the planet. But I can understand that because I can understand the importance of the experience that both of those guys bring to their apprentice. And I understand, having interacted with them a number of times, that I would happily send one of my sons over to either Travis and Chris and say, "Go listen to this guy for a little while. He'll put some more wisdom into you." And so I think that's maybe a good filter, a good way to establish the pass through the gate moment. If I consider, would I send my son to Chris, and I think no, well, screw Chris Lee. He's not my kind of coach. But that's not how I think. Chris is my kind of coach based on a whole bunch of things. And so I think maybe one way that we can consider, should I go and talk to that life coach, is maybe through the lens of, would I send my son over there to replace me as the life coach?
Interesting. That brings up all kinds of questions that I have for you. Any other thoughts, though, Travis? You got any thoughts on anything that we've hit on?
The apprentice thing, I think, unfortunately, like the expansion of our access to books and knowledge, people think they can learn things from a book, and we have all kinds of, negative terms for those people, bookworms and stuff like that, but I've seen a lot of them through my life that have massive amounts of book knowledge, but then in practice, they just can't put the pieces of the puzzle together, and then on the flip side, there's dudes that like skim the book real quick, and then just because they are who they are, they can assemble a puzzle and Ricky Tick, and they're on their way, and they keep moving, and they're just killing it. So it takes a combination of of actual knowledge and experience. I think we've talked about this in the past, which creates wisdom and real true understanding of whatever it is that you're trying to do better. And it's a combination of all those things to be, really a great mentor to somebody. And, there's a good, I think it's a Japanese saying, the professional has failed more times than the amateur have tried. That is necessary for good coaching, And unfortunately, I think with the instant satisfaction of the internet today, a lot of young people, they want to be the master right now. And you just can't achieve that without the years and years and years of experience that is required to achieve that status,
Yeah. I don't think it's just young people either. I think there's a lot of people who just in general out there who just want that quick, easy answer. Chris, you got any thoughts?
No, I agree with everything Travis and Shaun said. The pursuit of mastery of something is a journey, and it's not something you can get instantaneously. And kind of to Travis's point as well, the people that I've noticed in my life that are able to skim a book or skim an instruction manual and then put whatever together. It's because they do have some life experience that they can then add on, whether that's like a mechanical inclination or knowing how to work hand tools in general. I think it's the experience that leads you up to the ability to apply knowledge gained from material like a book or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Shaun, you got anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I do. It was something that Travis had said, and it was the reference to young people, not only just young people, as you cleared up, Chance, but people who have not been in the game long enough. Maybe I'll use that as the example, but they're keen for that title. They want to be a coach. They want to be the coach. I'm the best coach. The title itself somehow confers upon them some sort of authority or some sort of knowledge or some sort of validation that whatever they're going to say next has some value. And so the coaching title is, well, it used to be an esteemed title to some degree. At least when I was young, being a coach was a big deal because the coach was the person that you turned to for the life wisdom, the person that you turned to for the things that you couldn't solve yourself, the person who had been there and done that. That was what coaching used to be. And I think it still is, of course. However, there's a slice of non-coaches that have slipped in, claiming the coach of title, that haven't been there and done that. And therefore, they don't have the practical experience to be able to clearly and definitively state that, well, when I was ... I found that ... and maybe this will work for you ... The academic world blending into the real world is part of the young coaching problem. And again, Chance, to your point, some of the older in age coaches who are new to the coaching game. I'll say this, that when I finally started calling myself a coach, I'd been coaching for quite a while. And it was only upon years of reflection that I realized that I'd been coaching a lot. But I never made the claim, like put out a big flag on my front lawn and said, "Coaching McCoach, come and sign up." Because, I don't know, I was raised in a system that taught me to do more, talk less. And therefore, I'd done a lot of coaching before I even said, "Psst, yeah, I've done a bit of coaching." But it's kind of flippity-flopped itself a little bit in our today modern world where everyone's keen to spit out that they're a coach. But that never used to be the case. So today is a bit of a minefield out there if you're looking for a coach. And I use the term minefield intentionally because attached to the minefield is danger. And I think that some folks consider the coaching industry as, I'll just bounce my way around. Eventually I'll bump into a coach that yada, yada, yada. That is so not cool. I mean, when you engage in a coach, before you engage with them, you got to almost treat it like a life or death to some degree. Because what you're doing is you're handing over your trajectory to some degree to a person that you should know something about, that you feel has the experience to be able to help you, not is going to guess, pushing you in a direction that may or may not be appropriate for you. And so, again, I look at the panel and I would easily send my sons to Chris or to Travis because I know that they have been there and done that. And if they were a little off base, the calibration to put my sons back on track when they got back home would be almost insignificant. But if I slid them off to someone who's just fresh in the game, fresh out of school, fresh in life, oh my goodness, it's like a rewiring of my sons when they get back home. And so I guess my point would be this, that before you consider engaging in a coach, spend more time thinking about who's who in the zoo rather than how good you're going to be at the end of the week if you just grab any coach.
This is a great point, and it's actually goes to what I was thinking about earlier was when you mentioned apprenticeships. And I was thinking of back in the day way back in the day when your parent was a baker. Guess what your last name was? Baker. Right? And guess what you were going to be doing with your whole life? Baking. Unless you left the community to go find more information, right? Because the communities back in the day were so small, so tight knit. You were either a smith, you were a baker, you were a whatever, right? You were a cobbler, you were a whatever. But it was very limited within that one community. So even if you were a smith and you wanted to be a better smith, you would have to go somewhere else to find a better smith so that you could level up to that next level and then go back to your community and bring that information. So I'm wondering that now in the world where the community is basically the world, right? How do we develop those people to ask the right questions? And this is what I'm thinking is that for those that are just getting into the game, they seek the answers. They want the answer right now. And I think about this in jiu-jitsu terms because, a white belt will say, oh, I got caught in an armbar. How do I not get caught in an armbar? Well, that's the answer, but that's not really the question you're supposed to be asking because the armbar happened like 8 moves ago. And it was not until you figure that out later on through your training that you can actually develop the right question. So how do we get, say, the young people or the people who are new in the game or the people who don't have the knowledge to draw from to see that they're only seeking the answer versus the question? What do you think? Chris, I'm going to come to you first.
I think the filter that I would use is whoever you're seeking advice from, do they have the life that you want? And that's I think a good filter that can go either way, because it can also, it can let you ignore a lot of stuff that you don't need to listen to too. So if somebody is on the struggle bus in life, and they're telling you how to manage your finances, it's pretty easy to say, I'm okay. I'm gonna get advice somewhere else. But if one is seeking out a coach or some kind of mentorship or apprenticeship, it is, do they have what it is that I'm actually looking for? Now to your question, the phrase that keeps popping up in my head is, particularly with some folks that reach out to me, is, they love the idea of the job as opposed to loving the actual job. So when I get a DM saying, hey, I want to be a Green Beret or I want to go into special operations, when I talk to them, it's pretty clear which group they're in, whether they love the idea of the job or they love the job. And the people that actually want to do the job embrace the journey and embrace the struggle that gets you to there. It's the ones that kind of just want that authority that comes with the title that I typically just say, just go get in great shape and read a lot of books. Like if somebody says, or can't tell me the difference between a Ranger and a Green Beret, I immediately say, okay, you need to do a little bit more research and kind of actually figure out what job it is you want to do, because those are two different jobs, I know that was kind of a lot of word vomit, but that's kind of what came to mind is the people that want to embrace the journey to get to the level of mastery. Those are the ones that actually want to earn the title. Right
on. Yeah, absolutely. Travis, what are you thinking?
This is a real dilemma, and unfortunately, I think that the real lesson is that you have to make the mistakes. There's nobody's going to be able to say, hey, you got to look for XYZ, and then you're going to find a good coach, and then he's going to help you do what you want, and everything's going to be good to go, because that's just not how life works. Key to this is parents, man. Parents mentoring their children and their communities mentoring their children and knowing who's who in the zoo and pointing those young people in the right direction, and then realizing that some of those young people are making mistakes and then grabbing them by the scruff of the neck and pointing them in the right direction and letting them go again is extremely important. Chris hit on earlier that humans are a tribal animal. We ran in packs for millennia before things got kind of organized, and that's how we're programmed. We exist in a small community at best, and within that community we have the skills that are required to kind of further our existence. And you point your youth to the people in the tribe that you need to teach them whatever it is they need to learn. And unfortunately, like the reduction in actual like parental influence. Our kids go off to college, and they're far away. Our kids are in school all day and things like that, and we're busy with work. And that's just kind of how it is nowadays. You have to make a concerted effort to understand what the youth is learning, what they want to do, what they want to be. And as a parent, you need to take it upon yourself to guide them in the right direction. Like personally, putting your kids in combat sports, great character building thing. Great character building thing. Making them participate in one individual sport, making them play in team sports so they understand team dynamics. They understand individual responsibility as a part of a team. Little things like that build up to when this kid's 21, they're going to understand that's the coach I need to go to, or that's the coach I need to stay away from. But just kind of saying that we're going to X, Y, Z, and that's going to lead you on. That's just, I don't think that's a feasible course of action. It's life, man. You got to live it. It's just part of the equation. You make mistakes and you learn from them every time. It might be I'm going to do that again. It might be I'm never going to do that again. But you learn from everything you do, and it's just part of the way it is, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Shaun, what are you thinking?
Yeah, based on what Travis just said, I agree. Parenting is critical. And so that's why I feel pretty comfortable saying that, like right now, I could walk into the living room, tell my youngest son, pack your bags, you're off to Travis's house, you're going to be there for a month. And you know what he would do? He'd freaking represent. He'd represent our family household on how he's being raised well, on how he runs his life well, on how conscientious he is, how disciplined he is, how focused he is, how caring he is, how name a word that demonstrates being raised well. And that's what I would expect of my son the moment that he hits Travis's front doorstep. That's step one. Step two is when he's in Travis's house, then he'll act accordingly and learn appropriately from someone who's been there and done that. And if you can't do that as a parent, start rethinking phase one on how to improve phase one before you send them off to phase two, called a coach. And so if you blew phase one, now you've got adult kids and they're a handful, and now they're looking for a coach. Well, there's coaches out there that can deal with handfuls. I'd be one of them, because I just won't put up with your kids' nonsense. If I've got to be their dad at 27 years old, to wag my finger at them and say, now hang on a sec there. That's not how the world works, and you're about to find out why. I got no problems with doing that. I really don't. It's not that I enjoy it. It's just that I'm really comfortable with it, and I'm quite good at it. And so there's coaches out there for everyone. But if you blew phase one, you've now got to figure out what phase two looks like. And phase two is harder than phase one, because all the bad habits have been said, all the balls have been dropped, all the screw-ups are in place. Now I've got a handful. Well, phase two is harder than phase one. And so if you don't want to have the hard times in phase two, get your act together in phase one. Start paying attention to your parents. Start paying attention to the people around you when you're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Learn from your community, learn from your elders, learn from your peers. But if you ignored all of the good lessons, if you suck and you're the worst handful in the world, well, congratulations. Welcome to phase two, where you get to face me. You'd be better off in phase one doing a good job there than having to deal with me in phase two. But if you want to engage, then you're going to get better. And it will be for you to decide what the velocity is, not me. I'll push you, but if you want to be pushed harder, I'll just keep pushing. And I'll push you so hard that maybe you'll spontaneously combust. And then I'll run over, hit you with a fire extinguisher and say, let's keep going. That is the pace that I like to set. So there's coaches who will be heinous with their velocity. And there are coaches who will hold your hand and guide you through the candy land. So if you're entering into phase 2 as a handful, take a bit of time to figure out how much uncomfortableness you're willing to absorb in order to achieve what either you've been told to do or whether you want to do. Either way, phase 2 is going to be a handful.
Yeah. And I mean, I was I was one of those people, so I know exactly how you feel. Chris, you got any thoughts on any of that?
I've said for a while that if I was ever invited to speak at like a high school graduation, my opening statement would be, "Congratulations, you've just completed the easiest part of life." And I firmly believe that, because it gets pretty tricky after that, unless I don't know, unless you're uber rich. But even that has its own problems, I think. So yeah, I agree with Shaun. I know, right? So I think, yeah, I agree with Shaun. I think it's easier to keep up than to catch up. And so if you can lay down some good habits early on in life, then you're going to set yourself up for success. But it is tricky, because I have a teenage daughter, and due to the nature of her being a teenager, anything that comes out of my mouth is dumb. So I think that's the importance of creating good community, because if she gets guidance from another adult, it's typically received rather well. But something about coming from mom or dad, that there's some resistance there. So yeah.
I think it's because most kids are used to their parents.
Right.
But I hear you. My boys are in the same boat. Travis, got any thoughts on that?
I thought it was funny that Shaun framed this up as phase 1 and phase 2, kind of the way life works. At one point in my career, I was the team chief out at phase 2 at Camp McCall, and it was the first training phase of the SFQC. And I had a talking to from the colonel on a regular basis about our attrition rate. And he's like, they've made it through selection. Why have they not making it through phase 2? They got what it takes. And I'm like, I mean, phase 2's different. Phase 2's different. Phase 2 is different. And, people hold them accountable. Their teammates are a lot harder on them because they got to perform. It's not just them. So he's right in that. There comes a point where your performance matters, and you can't look behind you and blame somebody else. But it just caught me. It tickled me as he framed it up that way. Our parents probably are our first coach, and they have a lot to do with how things go, and through your whole life. And that's not always the case. There are outliers out there who make it on their own and surpass the odds and they achieve. And those people are special. But the way that humans work, kind of is that whole mentor and Padawan type learning environment, and that's kind of your whole life. I'm sure several of us know people who are considered masters of their trade. They're Jedi Knight, they're a black belt, whatever. And if you ask them, they would tell you how much they don't know about whatever it is they're masters of. That's a key component of learning, is understanding that you don't know at all, and your desire to keep achieving, keep learning stuff. It's a big deal. And kind of probably the moment that you think you know it all is you're due for a rude awakening, probably.
Yeah, well, there's that old saying, pride comes before the fall. And that's usually what happens, is that usually you're like, I know exactly what I'm doing. No, you don't. Shaun, you got any extra thought? I got a couple questions here, but you got
I
anything
do,
else?
real quick, just to build off of what Travis was saying. I won't give the specific timeline. I'll just say over the last 72 hours, so it's not too narrow. Someone passed through our local town here, and he'd hit me with a DM saying, hey, I'm just entering into town. I'll only be here for a little bit. I wouldn't mind meeting you and hanging out. And so I said, check, I'm on a bike ride right now. I'll see you in a bit. So I hooked up with him in downtown. Didn't really know his first name. But I ended up hanging out with him for 3 hours, just standing there chatting. He's on his way to something that is challenging. He's a civilian, but he's entering into something in the military, and he just wanted to ask a few questions. Well, that few questions turned into 3 hours. And I don't have 3 hours to give to someone that I don't know, unless they're the right person, unless I see something in them, and if they don't push back. My time is precious now, man. At 60, I've got like on average 18 years left. And I want to do something with that, something good. Not good in my life. I've already done some good things for Shaun. I'm talking about for the world around me. And so that's why we have the collective. That's why I do things on Instagram. That's why I stand for 3 hours with a guy that I don't know to try to help a guy out. Because he's got the right vibe. Because he's in the right game. Because his trajectory is calibrated with my trajectory. Because he wants to serve his country or he wants to do X, Y, Z. Now, there's an important part to this. That at some point in our conversation, he said, well, what if someone ... And I looked at him and I said, don't get it twisted, pal. Where you're going there to serve. You're about to become a servant. So I don't care what your opinion is on any of these things. My only concern is that you're about to go serve. And your opinion doesn't matter once you're serving. I wish they didn't do this and I wish they didn't do that. That wishing is against a system that is massive and knows what's better for you than you know what's right for you right now. So enter into the system, do your best, and then eventually you'll figure a thing or two out and you'll be able to ascertain what you can push back against or not. And by push back, I mean like not hard or quit, bounce, go to jail, whatever it is that is outside of the system that you haven't yet stepped into. So before you start day one, pal, you better get your head straight that you're going to serve as a servant. Nothing special. You're not so unique. You're not showing up on day one to have the system work around you. On day one, you're showing up and that system is going to smash on you. And your only job is to serve. Serve yourself, serve the person on your left and right, serve your country, serve the world, and then when you're tired of serving, then you can make some other choices. But until then, show up with a servant attitude.
Yeah. That's one thing I know I didn't take to heart early enough in my career was the fact that you gotta look for work. Like I didn't realize that until later on when after a long issue with my own head. But now, any other thoughts on that before we move on? I got a couple comments here. What do you guys think? Chris or Travis, you good to go? Okay. So KH jumped in here and he put this comment a little bit ago, said, representing the household is a very interesting point because there is a big push on individuality in the world, which is making people forget their roots or their own family histories. And I think this is a great point as a kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier with, bakers and smiths and stuff. But do you guys think that there is a larger, I don't know, I guess the thing that clicked in my head, Shaun, when you were talking was that most kids growing up were told that they're special, right? They're, oh, you're so special, you're so talented, you're so blah, 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 versus my parents' generation who didn't get told anything. They just got told like, no, go and do the work. Do you think that there's a that's part of it, that cultural shift towards the kids being more special or more effective or more whatever? Travis, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think?
I don't want to get all political, but there's kids are special. The next generation is special. However, as a mentor, you need to understand what's going to develop that child into a better person and a contributing member of society, a servant of the community rather than an arrogant like draw upon the community, and that's the responsibility of the older generation, the parents. That's what our responsibility is. I mean, I consider myself responsible for my community. If I see something going on that's not right, man, I'm gonna intervene and I'm gonna correct it. That's my responsibility as a citizen in my neighborhood. I'm not gonna let things go. And there is a weird movement, I guess, to bring people up, and do it nicely and make them feel good and all those things. But it's kind of a balancing act. I don't think that there's, the best course of action necessarily for everybody is to be, very militarist and militaristic and like very stern for everybody. People learn different ways. As a mentor, you have to recognize that and adjust your mentorship to fit the your apprentice, like the kid, whatever, and nobody knows everything. We're all learning, and it's a learning process. So it just kind of is what it is. I know these things, everybody's looking for the answer. The answer is we're all looking for the answer. It's like an unfortunate thing. We're doing the best we can all the time. I think my kids are special. That didn't take away my insistence that they adhere to a certain set of standards for our family, and they hated me at the time, I'm sure, but we have a great relationship now. They're all adults. They're doing good, and, feel good about it,
I like it. Chris, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think as our society has evolved, children or the next generation are no longer pigeonholed into the family trade. Like, I don't expect my girls to be soldiers. My youngest wants to be a writer, and she tells me that often. And so I do support that, and I do push for that sense of individuality, because I think that is important, because she has gifts that I don't. And I do want to kind of nurture and water that. But when it comes to like standards of just living, a practice that I've recently engaged in, when my 9-year-old is like, I don't know, I don't really feel like doing my homework, or this is good enough for this assignment. My question then is, what is your last name? And she's like, well, it's Lee. All right, what's that mean? And what I'm trying to instill in her is that, yes, she has the capacity to kind of do anything she wants, on a professional level, and develop into the kind of person she wants to become. But it's still my job to instill in her and hold her to a standard that I want to be set for our household and my last name. And I think that's important. So to the comment, there is a big push on individuality, but you can still water and nurture that individuality and let those roots flourish within the family standard and the family name, I think. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
I like it. Shaun, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm trying to do the same thing. In fact, I kind of have done the same thing, because both of my boys now at 18 and 19 years of age are both into their first year of university and second year of university. And I'm proud as any parent can be. I feel that my boys are special. And maybe they're no special than any other else's kids, but to me, they're special. And so all along the way, I've encouraged them as much as I could. I've set them up for success as much as I could. But conversely, I've held them freaking accountable as much as I could. And so to Chris's point, it's not uncommon for my boys to say, yeah, but you're Shaun Taylor. As if that's some sort of unachievable thing. When they're failing in something, it will be, yeah, but you're Shaun Taylor. As if I wasn't that skinny, underperforming kid before I joined the Army and started earning my way. I learned my way through life. I earned my way through life. And so when my boys say, yeah, but you're Shaun Taylor, that doesn't diminish me as a person. What it just does is illustrate that my boys don't understand the body of work that I had to put out in order to become, yeah, but you're Shaun Taylor, which they can be. Yeah, you can be Evan Taylor. Yeah, you can be Keegan Taylor. And by the way, boys, you're going to do better in life than I did, because you had a better start. You've got better support. You're better. So I expect you to continue on in the next generation and represent. And I think that that is a piece that is kind of missing in our society. And that's why I want to push this so hard after Chris is represent. Represent yourself at the very least, but try to represent your family name. Now, I haven't pushed the Taylor name like huge. It's not been like I don't have t-shirts with it on or anything like that, but I am to some degree proud of my lineage. And I want my boys to some degree be proud of their lineage. So my job is to instill upon them that they can be a better version of me. But my biggest expectation of them, and they've heard it many a time, is I'm not raising you. I'm raising the next generation. I'm raising your sons. The things that I'm passing on to you are for you to pass on to them. I'm not in this moment trying to teach you something. I'm trying to help you understand what you need to teach to your boys when they're born, when I'm not here maybe. So that's how I've run my life, is try to represent me to the best of my ability. Hope my sons pick up on that, and hopefully they'll smash in the future with their kids.
This brings up an interesting thought in my head, and kind of goes back to the different types of coaching. Is it's you're not so much pressuring that next generation to achieve what it is what you have achieved there, but there is an expectation that they will achieve, just in general, of their own devices. And going back to the coaching thing that I was thinking about earlier was the delineation of the different types of coaches, all of the different styles and all the different disciplines that we get into and all the different things. Do you think that has to do more with the specialization of each distinction between the coaches, or do you think that it has to do more with the lack of general skill? Like, let's just say, I'm going to use sports as an example, right? If you are a really good football coach, you can be the head coach of a football team. But let's say you're not a great football coach, but you're really good at the offense, right? So that you're going to be the offensive coordinator and you're going to just deal with the offense. But not to say that guy couldn't become a head coach at some point, late with training and so on and so forth. But that delineation off of the head coach is due to either a lack of skill or a specialization, if that makes sense. So I'm wondering, in terms of developing the next generation, whether that is in the military, whether that's in life, whether that's family, anything like that, it's more of like a recognition of what you know and then passing it on to somebody else that would know more than you, or would have a better understanding of how to progress, if that makes any sense. Excuse me. Any thought? What do you guys think? Travis, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think?
Special is always a good thing. I mean, if you know specifics of what you're after, then obviously, specializing in that specific task or skill is a good thing. If you're after, general physical preparedness, then you don't need to go to a weightlifting specific coach. It's just like a recognition of what you're after. If you are generally, I'd say if you're looking for a coach, it is because you have some specific thing that you're trying to achieve or become better at. So I would recommend that you look for somebody who has achieved in that specific skill, and they can help you achieve what you're after. As far as parenting, it's you have to be aware of kind of the general outlook, and you're building fundamentals in the youth, and character traits that are going to help those kids navigate life, that will help them find the specialty coach that they're after. So there's both, there's general skills, obviously, and there's those special skills that you need, and there's both kinds of coaches. So again, we continue to search, continue to learn, But I don't think one's over the other. One's better than the other. One's going to get you there faster than the other. It takes it takes a village.
Absolutely, I like it. Chris, what do you think? You're muted. Oh, there we go.
There we go. I think kind of the first thought that came to mind was the coaching market is relatively saturated because people think it's pretty easy, and I would argue that just because you're good at one thing or really passionate about one thing doesn't mean you're very good at teaching it, and regardless of kind of specialization, I think having kind of a foundation on if you want to be a coach or if you're seeking out a coach, I think it's important to like what was mentioned earlier is get to know them first, because again, even if somebody has a great track record at accomplishing XYZ, that doesn't mean they're very good at giving that knowledge to other people or communicating that well. I think that in itself is a pretty significant skill that needs to be learned and developed, and not everybody has done that. And again, going back to kind of the saturation of the market, a lot of people want to be a coach because they're super passionate about fitness or jujitsu or whatever, but they're not very good teachers, and so in regards to like the specialization, I think if you are specifically looking to do one thing, reaching out and finding that one person that knows how to do that one thing really well, awesome, but make sure that they know how to teach it, or if you're looking to get into coaching. But I think my first recommendation would be to take a public speaking class, learn how to communicate effectively, develop the skills that allow you to understand where somebody else is coming from, because not everybody learns the same way either. Coaching isn't really a cookie cutter endeavor. It requires a little bit of nuance if you're doing one-on-one. And I think those are some of the skills that I would ensure a coach has, like good communication skills, the ability to teach, on top of like solid knowledge base of whatever field you're looking into, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Shaun, you got any thoughts on any of that?
I'll just make it really quick to use the example that was raised, and that is the offensive head or the offensive football coach versus the head coach. Well, I think that the offensive coach can do 50% of the job, unless they've been a defensive coach. Now they understand the other 50%. Now they've got a shot at being head coach, as long as they've also coached the admin staff, and as long as they've coached the blah blah staff, and as long as they've done all the jobs, then cool. You can try out for head coach. And so I raise all of that to make this point. Stay in your lane. Whatever that means to anyone out there, you are in your lane, not my lane, or the head coach's lane, or the defensive coach's lane. You're in your lane. And if you want to step into another lane, get squared away. Unless, of course, someone says to you, the head coach didn't show up, you're in the spot, make it happen. Now that's an entirely different circumstance. That is happenstance. But happenstance is not the same as day-to-day operations. And day-to-day operations are run like this. If you ain't qualified, don't pick it up. If you want to pick it up, get qualified. And by qualified, I mean not just on paper. I'm talking about practically understanding what you're about to engage in on behalf of another human being. I think that part of this conversation, we've talked about a number of things, but I'm going to sum it up by saying, as a coach, it is a privileged position that has great responsibility because you've got another human's life in your hands. And I'm not saying that you can really screw it up or you can really make it great. But if you're a great coach, you can create greatness. If you're the worst coach, you can ruin people's lives. So when I say responsibility, I truly mean that. And that's why I want to say that not everyone gets to be head coach. stay in your lane. If you want to go into head coach lane, start getting some experience before you start looking for that spot.
Yeah, it's going to take some work, that's for sure. Now we are running close on the end of time here. I got a couple comments I want to hit on, and then we'll do some final thoughts. But first off, Travis and Chris, thank you so much for the conversation. This has been awesome. I'm going to hit these real quick, and then we'll carry on. So now Winterstorm jumped in here with this question, but I think we answered it earlier. Can someone be a successful coach at any level if they haven't done what they're coaching others? Like an Olympic level coach who never went to Olympics but could be a kingmaker. And I think we touched on that a little bit today, but I know we covered that a little bit yesterday as well.
Can you bank that just for the
I'll
guests
bank it
on Monday? Yeah.
Absolutely. We will definitely do that. Salty Jinx jumped in here and says, to Shaun's point, we can only ensure that if we can only ensure it if we lead by example. We know they can improve on us and go further, but we need to be the example and set the mindsets through action. We can teach them anything as possible if they put in the effort and drive the goals forward, which is 100% accurate. Drive the goals forward, but it's a balancing act because if you fall, they need to see you get back up. That is a great addition to that, 100%. So those are all the comments I got for today. Let's get some final thoughts in, and then we will shut her down for the afternoon. And I'm going to go take some more meds because I can feel mine wearing off. Travis, any final thoughts?
I think we kind of scratched the surface on the very end here about like if you yourself are thinking of being a coach and recognizing what it takes to be a good coach. Like there's a lot of education that goes along with coaching your specific niche, whatever that is, that probably doesn't have anything to do with that niche. You know, understanding human psychology, physiology, like the way that people actually learn. You know, one of my big pet peeves of my military career. I don't know how many times in my career I heard some jagoff tell me front sight post, front sight post, front sight post, front sight post. It's like, bro, it's not working. And they still say the same thing, front sight post, front sight. You're like, yeah, I've heard that already and it's not working. And they just keep saying the same thing, you know? So you have to have the depth of knowledge to draw from in order to change your approach and keep changing it until you achieve success. You know, you can't have one or two cues. You can't have one or two techniques. That's not enough. You have to keep learning and keep developing your coaching skills along with your particular discipline skills in order to be a successful coach.
100%. Chris, final thoughts?
Yeah, first, thanks again for having me. It's always a pleasure. I always feel a little bit smarter after talking with all you guys. But if one is looking to get in the career of coaching, understand that the job is never done. Like even if you earn the title and genuinely earn the title of coach in whatever discipline, you're never done. Continue to seek out to challenge yourself and learn new skills so you can better serve the people around you and the people that are seeking you out.
I like it. Shaun, final thoughts?
Yes, real quick. So I don't have a coach. I haven't had a coach for quite a long time. But you know what's been really fun about starting off the collective is now I've got a bunch of coaches. Like Chris and Travis are my coaches today. And the guests that show up on the regular, I treat as coaches because they're coming at the conversation through pretty full lives. I mean, the folks that we have over here aren't wet behind the ears. And so I really appreciate the wisdom that both of the fellas brought today, acting as coaches for me so that I can incorporate their wisdom into my coaching abilities as I move through life. I'd like everyone to consider this final point, not the panel, but anyone who's listening. We've all got a limited amount of time on the planet. You got to use your time wisely. You can pour your coaching abilities into one person who's going to fight you like it's an uphill battle. And you may be able to help that one person this year. Or you can make a bit of an effort on that one person who's going to fight you every single day. And then take the rest of your energy and pour it into 100 people who are going to have big improvements in their life this year. My time is limited. I'm currently ascertaining where I put my time so that I can create the biggest positive impact. And so for all of the coaches out there, take a moment to think about who you're coaching and why. And then for the people who are out there looking for coaches, consider what kind of customer you are. Are you showing up with an open mind, wanting to achieve a growth mindset? Or are you showing up as a customer who's going to fight that battle every single day to not listen to your coach? Become a better customer.
Yeah. And I mean, really, if you want to get your money's worth, you got to be open to it, because if you're not, you're just wasting money if you're going to fight someone the whole way through. I have just this one last thing I want to hit here. Alex jumps in, Kestrel Alex Cade. Good day, gentlemen. For reference, I'm the young man who had the privilege to meet Shaun when passing through his town. He's going to ask a question regarding the Phase 1, Phase 2 framework that Shaun mentioned. I'm going to bank this for later this week because it's a great question, but we just don't have time to get into it right now. So,
and I didn't
Alex?
expect anyone to, I didn't expect him to be listening, nor did I expect him to reference himself, nor did I expect that to occur. So thanks for boldly putting your name in there, and I hope that I reflected the moment appropriately.
We're gonna engage that. It's a really great question, but we're gonna engage that. You know what I'll do? I'll put it on tomorrow, just so you know. Okay, watch tomorrow. It'll be on there tomorrow. You can get your answer for sure. With that, we are going to be jumping into Coaches Week tomorrow. So Monday's going to start it off. We got 3 outstanding coaches. Seb Lavoie will be joining us, of course. We got Julie Kelly joining us as well, and Hunter Schurer from the High Performance University down south. So very excited to get that started tomorrow, and that way we can spend all week learning, building, and growing. You can do that with us every day here on The Collective. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Chimo.